Declare open the Submissions Committee meeting of Colac Otway Shire Council on the 2nd of August 2023. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of Colac Otway Shire. Enable this Council's decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. I'd like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of this land, their elders past and present, and welcoming descendants here today. Please be advised that this Submissions Committee meeting is recorded and live streamed, with the exception of confidential matters. This includes the public participation sections of meetings. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practicable. By participating in open committee meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of the information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. The purpose of this Submissions Committee meeting is to hear persons who indicated they wish to speak in support of their written submission for matter PP 329/202-1-465 Birregurra Forest Road, Birregurra 2-lot subdivision. I note that all 7 councillors are present. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, please? Being none, councillors, I first propose that we move to confirm the minutes of the Submissions Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 14th of June 2023. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Finnegan. Is it be opposed? Councillors, I'll put that to vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried 7-0. Verbal submissions from those applicants and objectors who have confirmed in writing that they wish to speak to their submission will be heard prior to the consideration of the agenda item. A limit of 5 minutes will apply to each submitter. We move to item 8.1, 465 Birregurra Forest Road, Birregurra 2-lot subdivision. The purpose of this item is to hear verbal submissions from the applicant and objectors about the planning application for a 2-lot subdivision of land at 465 Birregurra Forest Road, Birregurra. We have 2 submitters have requested to be heard in support of their submission. Sandy Bryan, objector, and Edwina Bryan, owner applicant. We'll take them in that order. So, Sandy, would you like to step forward? And you have 5 minutes to talk to your submission.
Good afternoon, Mayor, CEO and councillors. My name is Sandra Bryan. I am speaking on behalf of 3 of the co-owners of the property that's subject today, Paula Noble, Anthea Mathers and myself. I wish to object to the application PP 329/200-1. We do not support the submission application and wish to sell the property in the near future and would like to retain the farm as a whole, not excise the larger house and any farming land as set out in the application under the proposed Lot 1. The property is currently farmed through a lease agreement with Paula and Tony Noble under the business name Fairhome Birregurra Pastoral Company. I'm going to speak briefly on a number of issues of concern, including fragmentation, conflict of use, water, access and housing. I note that the property is subject to the farming zone of the Colac Otway planning scheme, and the Shire's policy discourages fragmentation of farmland and discourages dwellings unrelated to farming. The proposal will cause a significant farm to be fragmented. The proposal notes the purpose of the subdivision is to rationalise the family's ownership. The applicant is seeking a subdivision so the remainder of the farm can be sold and Lot 1 can be retained by the applicant. The design of the proposed Lot 1 will prejudice surrounding agricultural operations in the proposed Lot 2, diminish agricultural productivity of Lot 2 by removing high-quality farmland running along the Birregurra Forest Road and key shelter belts, which are critical for stock. The proposed Lot 1 is considered too small to effectively carry out the current agricultural activity of the property, including sheep and cattle farming, crop and hay production. The proposed Lot 1 will not provide a viable farming enterprise. It does not have access to farming infrastructure, including a shearing shed and yards, separate cattle yards and machinery shed. There is no guarantee that the proposed Lot 1 will continue the existing agricultural and farming operations currently occurring at the property, as claimed by the application. Conflict of use. The proposed Lot 1 does not have enough land around the dwelling to buffer adjourning agricultural operations in Lot 2. There's a high likelihood of conflict for future owners. The dwelling in Lot 1 will be adversely affected by agricultural activities on adjacent land due to dust, noise, odour, use of chemicals and farm machinery, traffic and hours of operation. The proximity of Lot 1 dwelling into Lot 2 stock paddocks has potential for domestic pets tormenting stock and conflict. Farming activities occur at all times of day and night, with many different contractors and employees accessing the farm via the current driveway, which is the proposed shared easement, which directly passes Lot 1 dwelling. This can adversely affect resident of Lot 1 dwelling and cause potential conflict with employees and contractors to the farm. A biodiversity notice is currently present on entry to the Fairholme farm. Vehicles, people and equipment carry weeds, seeds, pests and diseases. Biosecurity would be a major issue with the long boundary between the two lots and the proposed shared driveway. Biodiversity risks are reduced significantly with roads as property boundaries. Water. The proposed Lot 1 includes a large water dam and existing hay shed that would remove critical use for the operations of farm in Lot 2. Water from the dam is the only water source from the west side of Matthews Creek and reticulated to stock troughs in all paddocks via a pressure pump on the west side of the creek. Matthews Creek does not flow all year round and cannot be relied on for stock water. The water from the dam is also used in the small dwelling on Lot 2. Access. The primary entrance to the property is the Birregurra Forest Road. The proposed Lot 1 includes the current driveway from this road and would only provide access to Lot 2 as a shared driveway via an easement. If the application was approved, the house on Lot 2 could only be accessed via the shared driveway. This presents a significant cause of conflict for future owners. The shared driveway arrangement via an easement will create conflict and with considerable disruption to the farm operations undertaken in Lot 2. Who would be responsible for maintenance of the driveway in the easement? It must be noted that heavy machinery and large trucks currently require access to the working farm. In the event that the proposed easement would not receive approval, the alternative entrance to Birregurra Forest Road shown in the application would highly be unlikely to be approved by Vic Roads due to the dangerous location. The proposed entrance is only 15 metres wide, which would be insufficient for heavy machinery and trucks. Housing. The current planning provisions seek to minimise the number of houses removed from farmland. If Council approves this application and the proposed Lot 2 is sold, it is likely that the future owners of Lot 2 would want a new dwelling to be constructed for farm management. The existing dwelling on Lot 2 is not sufficient for management of a farm of this size. Conclusion. The property provides large-scale agricultural use through sheep and cattle farming, crop and hay production, which would be prejudiced by this application. Whilst the application does meet the minimum lot size for the zone, this application is a true, clear example of farm fragmentation, given the proposal introduces a carriageway easement in close proximity to the existing dwelling, which is approximately 30 metres, and also excises off several of the farm assets with the dwelling. Assets that are integral to the larger farm, such as the dam, will require a significant investment in the larger lot should the application be approved, just to maintain the farming enterprise. And thank you, Mayor. If you wish to have a copy of my speaking notes, I'm happy to share those with you today.
Thank you, Sandy. Councillors may not have any questions, but are you willing to take questions if councillors have any?
Yes.
Any questions, councillors? No. Thanks for your submission.
Thank you.
Edwina.
I had understood from the agenda that we weren't to go into a whole lot of the other objections that were sent, that the only issues to be discussed in this meeting were the issues outlined A to L in the document. So the fact that a whole lot of other issues have been brought up, I'm sorry, because that I understood wasn't the purpose of this meeting. I was asked to address only those issues and it was very clear in the document. So in going down those issues, if you refer to 4A, which says proposal does not meet the purpose and guidelines of the farming zone, the Victorian Planning has done extensive research into the viability in different areas throughout Victoria, and I believe their expertise, which is incorporated in your documents also as a minimum parcel of land, has serious benefit. So to argue that, is it meant to be 45, is it meant to be 50? Under planning, you need to give some clear guidelines and respect those guidelines, or discuss it to some fruitful outcome. So my comment is that the 40 hectares meets the guidelines that I was requested to meet. I didn't have a problem at assuming more, but my fellow owners requested that I did not impact them unnecessarily, and so the subdivision I've sought has been the least amount of impact that we could resolve. Lot 1 will prejudice agricultural operations in the proposed Lot 2 and diminish its agricultural productivity. I would need to have tangible issues to address in that matter. It's a very open-ended statement. There is substantial property being left. There's some 760 acres in Lot 2 with the further contingent of an adjoining title. So the 100 hectares, the 100 acres this year has only been used 50% of the time by stock. There's been 5 months that 2 of the 4 paddocks have not had any stock on them, not been kept for cutting, not being kept for cropping or anything else. So that indicates at the moment that perhaps the property is understocked. I'll try not to get distracted. Item C, the proposal will cause a significant farm to be fragmented. As I said, 15% is given in the planning regulations about the impact. This falls less than 12% of the parcel as it stands at present, so it falls I won't say significantly, but it does fall below that and is part of the consideration in putting forward the 40 hectares. As I said, if 45 or 50 or something will satisfy my co-owners, I'm amenable to, since my asset is as a quarter owner, and the proportion will be definitely less, however you approach the market value which they sought. There's been a separate assessment. Anyway, I'll get back to keep going on the 5 minutes. Farm subdivision and fragmentation can lead to a shift in land use for primary production to rural residential use. I think 100 acres would be difficult to call it a lifestyle block. The lifestyle blocks, as acknowledged, are about 5 to 10 acres. I have every intention of supporting the agricultural practices that my grandfather commenced for our family in this land. I would like to take a large proportion of this, but I'm being practical as to what I can do. This is the first opportunity in my lifetime, since it was left to me at the age of minority, to take a hand. It's been leased for 40 plus years to my elder sister and her husband. So this is the first time that I've been able to step up from my professional career and say, I want a stake in this directly. Proposed Lot 1 is considered too small for effectively carrying out viable farming enterprise. as I said, I believe the density can be increased. It's currently 4 paddocks. It would well, within the stocking rates that I'm observing by my brother-in-law, it well supports 6 paddocks, which would allow that fresh rotation that is the modern practice today, instead of allowing just random grazing. But I'm not suggesting the type of dairy farming rotation that we see on the Forest Road, where they're strip lotted. So I don't believe that's an appropriate use of the quality of this land or in respect of its neighbours. But I do believe grazing and hay is my purpose. I can't speak for a future owner or a future use of it. I think it would lead itself to a number of activities, as in potato growing or whatever, that all fall within about a 4-kilometre radius of this property, and much in the same rainfall and the same productivity. So that's observed.
So, Joanna, I'll just interrupt you there. The 5 minutes is up, but I allowed Sandy an extra couple of minutes as well, so I'll give you the same courtesy.
Okay, I should shoot down here because I'm really trying to address the issues they've raised. One thing I would like to say, there hasn't been a management person living on the property for 40 years, since Tony's brother lived in the cottage briefly. So saying that this needs and has had management residing there, I've had permanent residents of the property for the house for the last 8 years, and maintenance residents for the rest of the family for the last 40 years. The disputes, inadequate notice was given for the planning application. I have a document from elders where the family acknowledges a subdivision of some type that they describe, dated the 8th of July last year. I've continually confirmed my position seeking a subdivision, but the final layout is ongoing with council, and I was asked by my surveyor not to make it available to anyone outside the parties concerned for general discussion. So I've observed that. They do make a notice about inadequate notice, inadequate information. I'm prepared to provide that information, but as they're taking me to county court to sell the property 100%, they've, until today, basically ignored the fact that I've expressed a desire for subdivision. They're hoping this will fail so that they can go to county court and say, Colac Otway will not permit this to happen.
We can't go into that area, please.
But there's a reason behind I'm only mentioning it because they say I haven't provided details, that I haven't been in consultation about the exact layout. The layout has been somewhat constrained by the planners in requiring a very regular boundary, so it's been difficult to work with the infrastructure. The water can be supplied. There's already piping to other sources, and as my planner said to me, this terrain would support a dam on any one of those paddocks, very easily plugged into. So there's a little bit of infrastructure amendment, but at the moment, as the proposed subdivider, I'm quite happy for whoever buys the property to sign a legal agreement to continue the arrangement.
All right, thank you. Might have to wind it up there.
Thank you.
And again, I'm not sure if there are any questions, but are you happy to take any questions if there are? Councillor Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for both of the submissions we've had just now. In relation to the easement or the proposed easement, is that currently the only access for both dwellings and moving stock and any other vehicles that need to come onto the property? Is that the only?
No, there's a number of other gates off three roads. We're bounded by 3 different roads. So there's a number of gates, but it's the one that was historically built. So it's one that was constructed prior to 1950s. Now, when we looked at Vic Roads has rejected an alternative, and so the plan has been amended, but they noted that Deep Dean Road was very accessible, and I measured it was only another 250, I'm not belittling 250 metres of road, but there's an existing gate off Deep Dean Road and already existing hard stand going up the paddocks to support and have been used. So that actually accesses the infrastructure they're talking about quicker than it does from what we had proposed with Vic Roads. It's actually a more amenable, but it's a structure that hasn't been put in place these last 40 years because as the leases, they didn't have a commitment to put additional infrastructure in. Does that kind of answer your question?
So I think if I've understood it correctly, there's existing access through gates on Deep Dean Road.
Yes, there is.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? All right, thanks for your submission. Oh,
you.
Councillor Hart.
It may turn out that this is not relevant, but I want to ask this question anyway. There's an area not in title. Is that another dwelling or is it a paddock? What's on
Opposite the
Birregurra
dam?
Forest Road?
495. That was sold off from the property to support my mother's retirement. There was a stage where they were considering selling about half the property, which would have split the 860 acres. Council's planners at that stage, and I was, I guess, the proponent of that. That was one of our workmen's cottages, and they encouraged us to take that. And the very rear of the rear title over the water channel, they were the two. They identified 3 places that we could, without dispute, subdivide. And we took those 2 options and retained the land of the third as being disruptive at that time.
So there's some sort of dwelling on that not in
Yes,
title?
there's an existing dwelling.
Roughly what, do you mind saying roughly what size it is? Not the dwelling, the acreage of the...
We took 3 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
We made it a convenience rather than a hindrance to the owner. So we added more than we needed to make it a... And he actually operates in the agricultural industry down there now, the resident. It's not a holiday house, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers? Thank you. Councillors, officers have provided a recommendation with a report for our consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this? Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Is there a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Costin. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Hanson, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, just briefly, I'd like to thank both submitters today. What Council now has the opportunity to digest the submissions that we've heard today. We've also got the written submissions. We have an opportunity to ask, more questions of officers. So I thank the submitters, and we have quite a bit to digest from today's submissions hearing. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Costin, did you wish to say anything?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just thank the 2 submitters as well. Thank you. And Council will consider this at its 9th of August 2023 Planning Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other councillor? Councillor, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried 7-0. And that concludes today's submissions hearing. Thanks for your attendance, everyone.